Hey, Ron here from Military Images Magazine. Thanks for joining me for a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. Today we're going back not too far in history, only to the 1980s, just a few decades ago. I want to take you to one of the Civil War shows. We're going to go to Gettysburg. Imagine walking into a convention space. There are hundreds of tables. Folks are all milling about. Collectors, dealers, all kinds of museum quality relics and artifacts being purchased and sold. It's an exciting environment. At one of those tables is Harry Roach, the founding editor of Military Images Magazine. He's there with a specific purpose to be able to scan photographs brought in by collectors for future issues of the magazine. Harry has advertised that he was going to be there. The collectors knew it. They showed up with their most treasured images, and Harry set about making photographs. In the pre-digital era, Harry used a very traditional setup. There was a camera stand. There was his camera, his 35 millimeter camera on top. There were lights, usually 3 lights surrounding the camera. And the collector would come over, they'd have some banter. The collector would lay the photograph down on the table. Harry would focus it. He would point, click, and shoot. The lights would be all adjusted. You'd get a great photograph. The banter would continue. The collector would then walk away. The next collector would come up, and that would repeat throughout the entire show. That was Harry's way of collecting all of these wonderful images that were owned by those early collectors. Now, flash forward to today, we do it much differently. I imitate Harry when I go to the shows, and when I'm in Gettysburg, I have my scanner, and we do the same banter. The collectors come by, we laugh, we talk, we ooh and ah over the images, and then I make the scan. We finish up the conversation. The next person comes by. So in many ways, it's the same idea. It's only we're using different technology. And the scanner does its great job. I make a high resolution scan that is very similar, in fact, matches the standard set by the Library of Congress for an archival scan. Worthy of note is the scans that I make and the scans that the Library of Congress make are literally the camera part of Harry's old setup. What we don't do is the lighting. The lighting is done afterwards in Photoshop long after that scan is made. So those scans without lights are what you see. If you go to the Library of Congress right now and search for Civil War photographs, you're going to find those scans that were made by the staff without lighting. And it's completely appropriate because those are the archival scans. That's how the scanner sees the image, and it has not been touched or altered in any way by anyone on the staff of the library. Adding the lights is something that happens aside in a different time, a different place. So what I thought would be interesting, and I was reminded of this while I was visiting the library's website yesterday, is to show you what some of these images look like when you download them from the Library of Congress, or when you click on them on your screen and explore them, what it looks like after you add the lights in Photoshop. So I do want to say, before I show you a couple of examples here, that I've only added contrast. There's a filter called auto contrast, and this adjustment is made. I don't remove dust. I don't remove scratches. I don't remove any of that because that would be altering the image, and we don't want to do that. I'm simply using classic photojournalism standards of having the contrast changed. So let's start by taking a look at this great image of 2 Union infantrymen. This is what you see right now if you download the image or enlarge the image on the Library of Congress's website. Now, I'm going to bring it into Photoshop and turn on the lights. And when you do that, when you adjust it using auto contrast, here's what you see. Wow. Go back and forth and show you the difference. Here's the original, and here's what happens when you use the auto contrast filter in Photoshop. That's pretty amazing. All of a sudden, the image really comes alive. You can see the soldier's hardtack. You can see the tin cup in a new way. Super exciting. You can also, if you look closely, you'll see the light tinting of rose on the cheeks. So let's look at another one. Here is a soldier who probably served in the U.S. colored infantry, and he is sitting with his hat, sitting on a chair. It's a great pose. Here's the current version of the Library of Congress. If you add the lights, here's what you get. Wow, he just comes at you. He's literally jumping off the screen. He's coming alive. Just a wonderful, wonderful photograph. Now, here's another one. This one, I would say, is has almost achieved an iconic status when you think about citizens and the Civil War. This particular image of a girl holding a photograph of a cavalryman, it appears in numerous places around the internet. And here's the version that most of you see straight from the library. If you add the lights, here's what you get. Wow, she really jumps off the screen. How wonderful. That expression really becomes even more powerful, even more intense. So I'm going to show you one more. This is a Confederate soldier, and he is looking almost serene yet determined. He has his frock coat on. He's an officer, you can tell by the double row of buttons. Here's what happens when you add the light. Wow, the level of detail, the quality of the focal quality just pops. Not only that, you get to see the beautiful subtle tinting, the very light blue on his coat, the light yellow on his collar, and the red on the pinky red color on his cheeks. Just absolutely stunning. So it's a little bit of what you can do when you bring in these original archival untouched scans from the Library of Congress into Photoshop, make that adjustment for auto contrast. So there you have it. That's today's episode. We'll see you next time on the trail.